Dear brother priests, dear brothers and sisters, I tell you all nothing that you do not already know when I say that the Church of Christ is undergoing a very serious crisis, and that the Catholic hierarchy has failed in the serious obligation of its apostolic mission, and is in a large part corrupt. The origin of this crisis and its apostasy are now apparent even to the most moderate. They lay in having wanted to align the Church with the mentality of the world, whose prince, let us not forget, is Satan, Princeps Mundi Huius. As Catholic, we know and believe that the Holy Church is indefectible, that is, that it cannot be overwhelmed by the gates of hell. Through the promise of our Lord, Porte inferi non prevalebunt. But what we see happening shows us the reality of a terrible situation, in which a corrupt part of the hierarchy, which I call the deep church, for the sake of brevity I do that, has totally surrendered itself to the deep state. It is a betrayal that places the shepherds and the highest level of the church before a very grave moral responsibility and necessitated courageous choices by priests and laity that at other times would be difficult to adopt and justify. We are faced with a war, an epochal clash, in which our generals not only are not leading the army to face the enemy, but are actually ordering it to lay down its weapons and surrender unconditionally, driving away the most courageous soldiers and punishing the most loyal officials. The entire general staff of the Catholic Church has revealed itself to be allied with the enemy, and is itself an enemy of those who instead ought to be defended, enemy of Christ and of those who glory in serving under his banner. How can we understand, in the light of Revelation, this situation that is tremendous and unique in the entire history of the Church? We must have, first of all, a supernatural gaze with which to understand that the present events are permitted by God, and that in any case they will never succeed in overwhelming the Church. The great apostasy has been foretold in the sacred scriptures and should not catch us unprepared. Enlightened by the words of the Apocalypse of St. John and by approved private revelation, we can understand that the end times are necessary in order to finally separate the wheat from the weeds, permitting us to recognize who stands for Christ and who is against him. We must likewise understand that the tribulations that we find ourselves undergoing are also the just punishment for decades, I dare to say centuries, of infidelities of Catholics and part of the hierarchy, private and public infidelities, rooted in human respect, in fearfulness, in moral and doctrinal deviations, and in compromises with the secular mentality and with the enemies of our Lord. If we consider that the French Revolution was the punishment of God for Louis XIV's failure to consecrate the insignia of the kingdom to our Lord,